That's a kissing. Ya Tombani let me be ne Shine Drupje and then Denigi Tombani me be Tish and Yambasipi Dingezi Gomje and Nish Lusim to Shabiki Dewa Toyadu and Tombani let me be Shine Tobares. It's not that deep. Shine Combalatine, Tombani to Lodi, Combalatine and Yomoba, Savona Jepa, Bachata, Bangu, Bangbiki, Nimbody, to Chawores, as you can today. Then is something you're passing. Yamlin, they are just simply to on the Yamlin Chavana. That's just someday passing Yamlin to Chinchico Rese, Xindico Shibarodans.
Good evening. So last week we looked at the perfection of concentration, where one develops concentration, observing or focusing on emptiness. And this is crucial because in order for one's realization of emptiness to have sufficient strength, it needs to have the powerful mind of concentration, and thereby the realization of emptiness will be able to abandon the afflictions together with their seeds. We are looking at this in the context of perfections, so therefore the practitioner would be one that is a bodhisattva.
And
tonight we'll continue, but coming to the sixth perfection, the perfection of wisdom. In verse 106, please bless me to complete the perfection of wisdom through the space-like yoga absorbed on ultimate truth, joined with suppleness and great bliss, induced by the discriminating wisdom, analyzing suchness.
Shinegi Dombanila Tishu Mibe, Dingane, ne Sherapki Javachene, and Javache Yodu, ne Dingi Soso to be Sherapkis, you Dombani de la, and the Shinegi Patsidu Yam Mibe, Shinegi Yam Tishu Mibe, Di Mwene, that did Netan, Dombanila Javache, Sheraki, Sherap to Javachedu, and then Gazam Jilia, Karim was in Shin Zhangbi Xinjiang Dixin said the new Lusim Shin Shabiki, Dewachi Ligere, Dewa Yong to Gores, the Nig Lusim Shin Javi Dewachi Kiyodu, the Nene, the N, Basore, Dombanil, maybe Laton said Chagorese. That Domba door, sometimes Panchen Topsar, she near Topsarwa, Dombanin door, Dombanin, she near Drupsan, she near Dombanin Laton to Gurwa. She near Drupsane, the net Dombanin, maybe she need part Zidu Dane, and it Sherapki Javachico. This is Javachi, so to be sheriff there was so Tobasana, Javachi, sheriff de la Warva. Chisadinigi, sheriff Javachi, and a Gansam Jella, Carinos and Lusim Shin to Shaviki, the Nigi Pa Jangdo Chibikabla, Jane Gansam Jella, Lusim Shin to Shaviki, and there was Togures, Tito, Dombanila, maybe she lost on the Tobares.
This verse builds on from what we looked at last week in the context of the perfection of concentration. As with the perfection of concentration, the object is emptiness, which is being held with meditative one is in meditative equipoise, observing or focusing on emptiness. Here, that would have be to do with verse 105. Now in 106, the meditator, having realized emptiness, engages in the meditation we have in our fourth line, that of discriminating wisdom, or rather than discriminating, one can say distinguishing wisdom or differentiating wisdom, which means continuing to engage in analysis. And here, whilst being able to engage in analysis without one's calm abiding being hindered in any way, one gives rise to, now what we see in the third line, suppleness and great bliss. Or rather than suppleness, the newer translation is better. The newer translation in the Blue Book, pliancy and great bliss. So when these are conjoined and have been induced by discriminating wisdom, analyzing suchness or emptiness, then one has the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness.
아니 동바 유 동바니래 제도게 잡이 신정인 대위 신비기다 닝이스나 셔럽 지라네 신라송제시고래 나 신라송제세 디로와.
What is the meaning then of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight? Well, it's a union, so you have two minds together, one being that of calm abiding, where one's holding the object. The mind is placed single-pointedly on the object, of emptiness in this case, and one is able to utilize discerning wisdom or discriminating wisdom, which means engaging in analytical meditation, investigating further without losing single-pointed concentration. So this is being able to engage in discerning wisdom, or the mind of meditative insight, mind of analysis. And when this is conjoined or in union with calm abiding, then one has, and this is what is meant by the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. Analytical meditation, where calm abiding, single-pointed concentration, is not lost.
난 연주선바 당한 저기 시라의 80년 세대 그 시라의 80년 라면도 다디 그래서 시라송대 차대요 봐다 시라송대 딩에진 세대 자고래 당한 지다 다시라 손들 주비야데 게디 주고래세네 아 저기 가제레 졸람 전주선바 년뒤 직 당보크런데 야 태칭게 전주선 냠는제지 태칭람라 슈팅이 지메 인바이나 데니기 전주선바디기 근데 동반이라미 베실레 손들데 게디 주고래세네 미니 다데 졸람 첨부이기 내가서 동반이라미 베시네 줍차르래 지다다 줍차니다 데니기 졸람 첨부디기 다 동반이라 제주의 냠바샤시면 안에 다 동반이라들 야제바진 실라 손들 줍네 다 실라 손들 주변어디 아니 졸람세도 톱주고래서 졸람 톱주마도 아니 동반이라 메실라 손들 줍고 말에 줍투고 말에.
We're looking at the presentation of the 6 perfections. So therefore, we know the practitioner is a bodhisattva. Here they will, in the context of the wisdom, the perfection of wisdom, the bodhisattva will already have attained a realization of emptiness. And when will that realization be, when will emptiness be realized by the union of calm abiding and meditative insight? Well, if we take as a practitioner a bodhisattva who attains at the very first path they attain is the bodhisattva path of accumulation, they will progress through this path each time meditating on emptiness, realizing emptiness, holding it with a calm abiding. And when they have progressed through the 3 levels of the path of accumulation are within the great level of the path of accumulation, they will enter into meditative equipoise, realize emptiness, hold it with calm abiding, and they'll continue as they have for so many meditations prior to this, engage in discerning analysis or investigation, and they'll come to realize emptiness again, but this time without their calm abiding being disturbed at all. And this is where they have the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, and this marks the entry point into the path of preparation. So the second of the 5 paths, the path of preparation, it is attained in the moment that, or the mind that is called the path of preparation, that is a mind that has just realized emptiness with the union of single-pointed concentration or calm abiding, together with meditative insight.
many Yandugi, Dangbo, Yandugi Lamla, Lam Yamlenje, then Yandu Tachimichivo, Top Che, then the Janshu Semba Chato, Jungurwa, Dina, Range, Lamla, Dangbo, Range, Lamla Lobsang, then Yamlenje, then Range Tachimito, Chivo Top, then Janshu Sem Yuleki, Janshu Semba Chagorwa, the Negi Janshu Semba Tequila, Janshu Semba Solamba Tequila, and Dombanil Mushila, something top tower, hasn't many Yandu Range now, top tower. That Dombanil Mibishini, Nishila, Sunday, Mixiki, Yanja Tobia, Dondalo Comgoya Marwa, Chidana Dombanil Shila Sun come to Comgorde, Shila Sunday Matoba, Tobi Childu, Tobia Dondala, Comgoya Marida.
What I just presented was the path of a bodhisattva who their very first path they achieve throughout their continuum of lives is the bodhisattva path of accumulation. There are other bodhisattvas who have progressed through the trainings of the Tibetan practitioners, the heroes and solitary realizers, and completed that training. And now eventually they've decided that they also need to generate bodhicitta and progress to Buddhahood for the sake of all beings. They then need to newly accumulate the bodhisattva or achieve the bodhisattva path of accumulation, but they have already completed the trainings of the Tibetan practitioner, which means they will have already attained the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, realizing emptiness. So when they enter into the bodhisattva path of accumulation, they do not need to realize emptiness with a union of calm abiding and meditative insight, because they will have already done so. So for them, their progression is slightly different.
Kangba setting as Hagua, as a Kangba, as a Pama, as a Tongo, Dogore. In do sometimes Korajibura, something as a Kangba, the social Kangba rang sometimes, Shanda, some Mata, sometimes Lamsa, Denigi, Sechi, Matuaje, Shanda, washing what Jada, Shanda, Jada, the Legaro Jan, Dene Janji, same the Sechi to need 2 minutes, as a Kangba, as a Timing ever, as Dogore. In that Dirang sometimes doing and the chick Naming Pa Church in the Zich to need 2 minutes. On dinner, don't buy your door by in there. Don't buy your door, Sanaya, that don't buy your Zich to do some other young Naming one get Shandash in Pa Church was young gore, just a dinner, Zich near to be like Alakawa. Dinner is other, don't buy, don't buy your door, what's me, don't buy Zich near to a Chagoma. Dinner is other, don't buy your Zich to near to a $2 and the Yana to come to Hine to cook, but don't buy your machine to go away to saying Tirua.
Ourselves, we realize many objects every day. For example, if we think of our home, we'll realize that it's as our home, or we see or recall our parents, we'll realize that these are our parents. So we realize many objects. But we also know when how quickly we become distracted. So if we think or see of our home, for example, very quickly we'll think of perhaps tasks associated with our home. So in this way, we immediately distracted from the object. So this you'll know that we all too quickly become distracted from objects of meditation. So when one comes to eventually gain a realization of emptiness, that realization will be hard fought, but even when it's attained, it's quickly lost, because the mind is so easily distracted. So therefore, when one gains a realization of emptiness, it's imperative that one develops single-pointed concentration in order to hold that realization of emptiness undistractedly. So therefore, when one realizes emptiness, this needs to be followed by the development of single-pointed concentration.
Jaya do she couple of dang to get couple of simpai and I sure so sure yan, young delia, some tattoo, the similar 더 강아라체 조용고로와 류레 아직 망고되되 샘을 강아테도 수불에 아니 강아 되스 용고로와 데네자도 전 바제주네네 장네 가슴질야 파 장여도 단 샘데 데레제주 네제까지 되나 되투에게 샘이야 강아 균에 메게 샘신도 장와사지 레용도 데네 디 띵이진 디톱기 류디아 신도 장와사 차용 제가 데네 류샘 신도 장와사 토메도 데네 또 동반일 미비기 신이 쭉 차와로다
In this way, one recognizes the need to develop single point of concentration, because without it, our mind remains so distracted. When we have single point of concentration, we will be able to abide on the object that we are meditating on without distraction. Moreover, we also know that with this distracted mind, we experience many difficulties, adverse circumstances, both physical and mental, whilst trying to meditate. But when one develops single point of concentration, one develops pliancy, or in the translation in your books, they use suppleness. One develops pliancy of both the body and the mind. When one develops pliancy of body and mind, one knows one has achieved single-pointed concentration. It's a sign of achieving single-pointed concentration.
Bendigo 저기 대 교과 직수제 교과 충충치지 네가 알야 강보 직수제 야랑되들이야 갈래고로 지마리네 되마도 갈래요 봐 도시 되네 간섭저도 되게 되네 봐야 지랑야야 가세 랑 구교마다 되베네 간섭 되투 어르데 이나데 양 강보 산다지 구교 라바도 구교 따베네 마리 줘야 용거로 제가 되네기 두시네 나 제모적인 데모 타야도 와다 되네기 두신 되네 아니 간섭질로 두시 강바 라고 유 장도 지가로 강바지 교과 충주 가로 주제 아니 라바다 강바 산다지 유지 가서 제베네 되투에게 차야지도 와 장도르시네 어디나시 당보 동반일미 베신이 줍사와이네 제지도 되투고데 이나다 셰랍기 제바지여도 양제지도 마두가 자고래 제지도 마두 심도 유루고 제가 되네게 제지도 네제 제바제 장장장장 가슴제 장도 아니 가슴질이야 미베 띵이 진디기 또 유del에 동반일 제지도 네 투비 갑라 내심베 갑라 셰랍디기 제바제네 제디 갑라 제바제 투비 되네 셈리아 강아메디 유다 셈니가라 강아메 되네게 띵이 뉴베 토어도 되네 신실라 가소레 되네게 제네 띵이 진이 제지도 네제 셰랍기 제네 되네 디 당비기 간섭질 유심 신도 장와 유심라 강아메 신도 장와 대와시 토비도 되네 실라손데 토바레서 동반인도 실라손 토바레서 실라손질 디신자 사바도 대시 그러스네 제주 네비 갑로 시럽 제바지도 셈디 유르고와 된 양직 양네 양네 제도 양직 갈레르 요르와다 류레 강아 류스미 제자다 데네기 파제바 제도 제주 네된 시럽까지 제바지나 데네 셈리아 강아 규디 가세지나 제투가 강아 규니 메바지 레야지 제 셈신도 장와자 디도비 류신도 장와자 데네도 다고 장노를 마서나 시우 장노를 야고 차사다 강아 메르와 된자 고 실라손데 토바레스 그러
So perhaps one's body is a little frail. We know standing up and remaining standing can be a little difficult. One can be a bit unsteady on one's feet. So one may get a walking stick, hold on to that for some support. But then one is still a little bit unstable. One may, especially if one needs to do some exercise to try and increase one's strength and dexterity, but still a little bit unstable. A second walking stick would mean that one is much more stable on one's feet. So this then we liken to what we're trying to do with the mind. First we saw the problems of having this distracted mind. Then when we develop single points of concentration, marked by the pliancy and the comfort, physical and mental comfort of having, or perhaps ease, of being able now to hold an object without distraction, single-pointedly. This can be likened to having one walking stick. But as soon as we now want to investigate the object of meditation further, we lose our pliancy. We lose our pliancy and we lose the single-pointed concentration. So this is likened to someone who's a little unsteady on their feet, having one walking stick, but now needing to move and engage in exercise. They're starting to shake again. They are unsteady. They really need that second walking stick. Here, the meditator realizes emptiness, holds it with calm abiding, and now they're experiencing the ease, rather than the bliss, the ease of physical and mental pliancy in order to hold the object single-pointedly. But as soon as they want to investigate further, they lose that pliancy. They lose their single-pointed concentration. So now they need to go further. And eventually, through further training, they develop a new pliancy. This new physical and mental pliancy is attained when the object, emptiness, is realized, held single-pointedly, and then when further discerning wisdom investigates, the pliancy remains. So this is now a new generation of physical and mental pliancy, comfort and ease, to now not only hold the object single-pointedly, but to investigate as well. Now, union of calm abiding, holding the object single-pointedly, and meditative insight, being able to investigate further, has been achieved. And what marks the achievement of the union of calm abiding meditative insight is an attainment of physical and mental pliancy, this comfort and ease with which one now can both hold the object and investigate further.
지난도 전에 장기진게 간sam질라 장도를 제어도 된 담아라 안 제주도 네버까지 제주 네병 안에 디묘와 내신병 안에 셔럽 띵이 진디기 유대라 미네 미요 제주도 내신병 안에 셔럽디기 제바지 니가 gelera 제 두고다 제사다 니가 gelera 제 두베 띵이 니바 통하되다 가젤 아니 실라송데서 토야 디쇼.
The word union refers to two working together in harmony. The second of the two is meditative insight, or it's also called penetrative insight or special insight. This is marked by the arisal of physical and mental pliancy, and it means that one can investigate the object further. Prior to this is the attainment of calm abiding, and this is also marked by the attainment of physical and mental pliancy, being able now to hold the object with ease and comfort without physical and mental effort or difficulty. And prior to that, before one had calm abiding and meditative insight, one may realize the object, but would lose it very quickly because the mind was distracted. So therefore, where we find ourselves now is the distracted mind. So if we realize an object, we'll quickly lose it. Develop calm abiding, which means we can hold it single-pointedly, and this comes with pliancy, so we can hold it single-pointedly with ease. But as soon as we investigate further, we will lose it. But when we have the union of calm, develop the single-pointed concentration further, so that we now have the union of calm abiding or single-pointed concentration and meditative insight, this analytical, investigating analysis, and this is marked now with pliancy, we can now, with physical and mental ease, continue to investigate the object without any distraction at all. That is the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, and it's the sequence of attainment. First calm abiding, later meditative insight, and each attainment is marked by the achievement of pliancy.
Dinigi Shindo Jambigi, Dishin and Davigi, and Donam Yamshanim Kinal Jogi, Shera Passion of Pachingelos. Dinigi Tombanila mi bigi Shila Sundio Top Sane, Zidedi, Dondam Sidu, Dondam Su, Dondam Tombanila, mi bigi, and Shila Sundio Gombi Bede, Gomi de Gabla, Yambashavas, Yambashade, Namgi Naljor Sede, Namga Nashi, Namkalia, Torre. 가슴기 동상하지마도 토래 가야메가 동상하지마도 매바 나시 최담비 랑신 주비 동비 동반이 되라 냠바시베 냠자시에 되려다 남게 날 주어서 돈담베 남게 날 주어서 동반냠을 되니 돈담베 돈담 남나 동반이 되지 제가 된다 반년 바시베 냠제 남카나시 남게 나주라다 남카라나 남카라 동상하지마도 가야 토바다 레바 가야 매바 동상하지마도 매바자 디나시 유의 가야 제바지나 가야 매바 동상하지마도 동라신 주표 동표 동반이 되라 냠바샤바 냠바샤비게 다실라 손르기 톱네데 냠바시비 띵인진데라 돈남 냠자 디곰발에 때네 아니 셔레에 파신 냠네 탈친 보이지 고래 셔레 파신 냠 탈친 바 탈친 고래 제사 디네게 탈친 비게 라메 진일라로 제사디 다don나 디리스 고래.
Looking at for us in English, the second line, the third line in Tibetan. So the older translation in the book that you all have, through the space-like yoga absorbed on ultimate truth. The newer translation is a little more accurate, through the space-like yoga of single-pointed placement upon ultimate truth. The meaning is the same, there's no error, just there's also the word for meditative equipoise. So the mind is in meditative equipoise on ultimate truth or on emptiness. So here in the older translation we have the word absorbed. And that's normally what we would have translated as meditative equipoise on ultimate truth. And the newer translation has the word single-minded placement. Again, it's usually the word meditative equipoise. In the phonetics, in the third line, you'll see Dundam, which is ultimate truth, and then Nyamshak. And that Nyamshak is the meditative equipoise. Then to look at the term space-like. Space-like is also sky-like, it's the same word. So in some translations, they'll refer to the realization of emptiness being like the sky or being like space. What this means is that all that appears to the mind that is in meditative equipoise on ultimate truth, on emptiness, is the pure empty state. All that appears is emptiness, the pure empty state. So that is the meaning then of the term space-like, or as one will find in other texts, sky-like.
다디 시래기 발신이 냠랭기 다 시래 발신 세트니 실래기 지사 냠랭 세디 전주심 육군에라디 공부하들라 다 시래 발신 냠랭 제바사지 송거와.
This then is the presentation on the perfection of wisdom, the training in wisdom of a bodhisattva.
나디 미 냠랭 나가디게 동반이 또 안에 동반이를 미비실라 손으로 톱사위 계시 톱사와와 당하나 저 가르에서나 다디 내가 저 동반이 마토바레 동반이를 미비실라 손으로 토기wen자 당하나 디기 토네가 저 랍제랭고아데 가르라나 당보가 유 동반이 있어야돼 간에시에서 동반이데 당보 고직 동반이데 하고와 제와데 계침부차고로 하다 제바지 동반이 데니가 하고 바네 데니게다 저기 동반이를 데니게 델이야 지지도 지게 셈 지주네 주비야데 아주 계침부차고로 데니게 주네 안젤이안 야 지기 닝안에 다 제바지야데 용거로 와.
This verse, being directed at a bodhisattva who has already realized emptiness, is about the practitioner who now realizes emptiness with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. This really is referring to a bodhisattva on the path of preparation, somewhat more advanced than us. So how then should we relate to the verse? Well, we still first have to realize emptiness. This is of great importance. When emptiness is realized, we need to develop single-pointed concentration, holding that realization, undistracted. That too is of great importance. Thereafter, thirdly, we need to be able to develop the single point of concentration into the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, so that we can, whilst holding the realization of emptiness undistractedly, can continue to investigate ever deeper.
안지 지나다가 제 동반이고 망보시에 살에 예수디 망샤로 제가 주의때 되는 시리에서도 뭐 소야로 자고 와도 하나 마도베네 이나야 되니기야 지 아주 사바로치 되니기 냥에 사바로 줘봐 있나 안지 소리야 그래서 판도라 용해도 나래 아주 야 동반이고 되스 직대시 주셔나 야부도와
Most of you I know have heard many teachings on emptiness, and this is certainly something truly valuable. It's such an important realization. But for those who haven't heard teachings on emptiness, then I'll use this opportunity to introduce the topic.
디네자 당한 주기 가르르세네 단 낭비기 단 최간의지인의 현실을 뛰네 줍디바 마도 마테바 가요 말해서 근데 뒤지기 최배 뒤지기 최디나 뒤지 최간의지네 유단견 현실을 뛰네 기고마도 현실 마테바 기와 가요 말해서 다 뒤지기 최 많이 봐야냐 근데 지게 현실을 뛰네 연구로마도 강来마테바지 연구 말해서 다 담보 된지게 남자 현실을 뛰네 두고래 사실 송고를 받아
To understand emptiness, one also needs to understand dependence arising. Because the way all phenomena appear to our mind, in other words, everything we think of, every object of thought, everything we think of, everything that appears to our mind, appears as if it is independent, exists in its own way, independent of anything else. But no object exists independently. Despite this is how everything that we think of appearing to our mind. Phenomena that are impermanent, that change momentarily, they are all dependent on causes. And again, the way they appear to our mind is independent. Whereas if they are impermanent phenomena, they are actually dependent on causes. And permanent phenomena, the phenomena that do not change momentarily, they too are dependent. So actually, every phenomenon exists dependently, yet appears to our mind as being independent, not reliant on anything else, as if it were self-existent, fixed, static.
Benardo Modaruchina, Modaseti, Jala Manguchi, Zomche, Tsoche, Chasan Ruche, Sueche, Denig Part, Jikjurche. Denigi, Zue Savigi, Ma Dixuchi, Mampuji, Dilla Dine, Pa Jichil Dune, Pa Yala Georgia. Denigi Chopa della, that Delia Motras, Pa Lupa, Daba Zamato, then Daba Zami Motashi Yedi Remato, Denigi Mataba, Motachi Yaya Marechirvada.
Every object, everything we think of appears to our mind as being independent. So if you think of your car, this too appears as if it is independent, unconnected, fixed and static. But the reality that you can quickly recognize is that what we call a car is firstly dependent on a wide number of parts needing to be accumulated. So therefore immediately we recognize it is actually dependent on the accumulation of parts, a complete accumulation, not a partial accumulation, but a complete accumulation of parts. But even a complete accumulation of parts of a car is nothing more than accumulation of the parts of a car until a second form of dependence arising is utilized. Car, or the word car, needs to be imputed by mind onto that complete accumulation of parts. Only then does one have a car. So whilst it appears to our mind as being independent, when we look, we see it is very clearly, most definitely dependent on a complete accumulation of parts, as well as dependent on imitation by mind.
Di colores, party morama, the motor color, chassis ecology, said. Di pa chassis pa se shabena, didn't dela such de Dongba Charwood. Chizan motor the Yeme Bashe. Chizan the Niki motor chassis, Tone, Palu, Tabats, and Maimba, motor Jobina, chassis pa sin, pa zin do, chick motors new word, didn't mania Bakaya Meba, Dongba Charwo, Dongsan Euro. Chizan the Niki motorgi. The chassis pa se ne pa jena gan dong san ni de motor dong ba yin sa ji motor dong ba sa ro be di na xin ga zu ge ga sa nga se de ga zu pa ji ma zu pung pung ba gang ro ji pa nga se pa lue pa da ba sa ma do nga di ga ge re se ne ga zu ge su yu pung bo di pa nga re be pa je sim ju je di ya re men du sa da xie ba di ge cho wa da du xie di ya re men je ba chen jin zin ne nga se de nie me ba la jesa de ne gi nga se de da shen zhe yu chen na ma nie ba dong sang de la dong ba yin se ro di ro da di ro.
If you were to divide your car into its varying parts, you wouldn't find within those parts a car at all. And so mentally you can do this right now. Divide your car into all its varying parts. And you will not find a car, you'll just find a whole lot of parts. And those parts can be divided into their own parts. And nowhere will you find a car. Whereas if it did exist independently in the way that it appears to the mind, it would be findable. It would be findable. And yet when one investigates, engages in discriminating or differentiating analysis, no car can be found, other than when all the parts completely are accumulated correctly and the label is imputed or designated onto that accumulation. That's the only way there is a car, not in the way that it appears to mind. And this is the case for everything, for every object, every phenomenon that we think of, every object of thought. So if we take ourselves, our self or our I, if we think of ourself, who we are, who we've always been throughout this life, if we look for that, we cannot find it. We look within our various parts of our body, our varying individual consciousnesses, we cannot find anything that is ourself or our I. And therefore, our I is empty of being independent, empty of existing by way of its own nature or essence. Just like the car, it too is empty of being existing by way of its own nature or own essence or independently. That is the meaning, in brief, of emptiness.
마다 마제바이나 풍부 신 풍부를 전지를 되네 나 세디 파다바 좀 여봐 자고 되네 여봐디 마다 마제베스네 여봐래 디기 여봐디기 안저 자와 뭐 두고 봐 지나 모자세디 파 차시디 파 신의 다신 집에서나 강화 마덴 바지 다신 집에서나 녀면의 동사차래 이나다 그 마다 마제베스나 야라 망부지 초발을 되네 직쇠세 될어야 모자스 파 다바 다녀도 되니기 마다 마제베를 파다바 잠기 모자도 여봐래 니기 아주 베제당 투고 베제당 자와치야다 차산시라고 베 이지 상사 베제다나 야도 베제다네 되네 베제당 라고로 봐 제사다 딱신 집에 세나 강라에 마도바 랑원의 두바데디 여 말에데 이네 마다 마제바 르파 다바 잠비 여봐래 니기 자와치 투고를 자식이 차산주 투고로 와
Take it a little deeper. What we've just done there is a process of investigation, and the object we investigated, the car or the person, cannot be found and is therefore empty of existing in the way that it appears to the mind. That being said, when one doesn't investigate, the object exists and it can perform many functions. The person, the car, can perform many functions. So therefore, we need to go a little further, otherwise we see a contradiction. The car or the person that appears to mind does not exist in the way that it appears to the mind. It is empty of existing in the way that it appears to the mind. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all. The way it exists is imputed by mind. And a car or a person that has been imputed by mind can perform functions. But the independent car, or the independent person, the person or the car that exists by way of its own nature or essence, this does not exist at all. But the person or car that upon an accumulation of parts, person or car is imputed, that can and does perform many functions, and that exists.
디바야 다신 제베스네 디바야 요말 세다 디니게 삼다제 디니게 토네 아니지 샹레네 통충 다야다 디니 요마시바 가이말 디비기죠 어다 디비제 가요 말디 심지어 쇠셔베네 디바세 다신 제베스네 녜스 요말와데 뢰 다바스미로 아사샤 안디 밀리아 아니 미세디 팔레 다바스마 다신 제베스네 녜요 말셈베 디니게 삼다네 지게 젤이야 통충 다야다 디바당 디니기 톨이야 마셈바제 디니기 제기 냥아 요시바르시레 그래서네 고 동반이 제에게 삼로디 돈다 딱다지 말레바제 디 다시 집에서 요 말에서 암주도 고 디니기 롭삼 락바락바로지 삼다다데신 디니 토네 아니 디니기 레델레 켜서다 샹리아 나쇼다 켜서지야다 디니기 요시바 용시바레 제가 디니 인자 안델레 so samtangwayadi tongbanyi dohanla dene yungmar tongbanyi cheba yakui dohanda dohbala kawa dene yungmarwa da dinga so dene samtadu mata majebe chena yore dashin jebe sna nye yomarte mata majebe chena yore jeza mata majebe yoba inza ngaza moja sedi mata majebe chena le tabazo yobare inza ngazo peje dairagi duwas jeza dene inza 디버세 나자 셴세베네 수이네 마다 마치베스는 여바래 제가 디니 인사 다시 집에 요 말했을 아니 고 삼다베네 지금 마다 마치베스는 여바 인사 마다 마치베 디버체베네 마다 마치베스는 디비디부 용그레 가서 강아 용그레 한 셴레 통총 다야다 니주 제베네 니기 좀 제들라 아솔레 동아야다 강아제야디 용그레 시다 마다 마치베체나 고 탕이도 마다 마치베스는 여바래 여데바래 인자 니기 토네 아니 자와다 제보다 차산 남샤데 대교어와 되네 인자 아니 디삼당고 디삼마 다베네 되네기야 니주제야다 통총 다야다 디발레 메셈바제야디 용말와 셴디마제나 디삼마다베네 다신 집에서 요 말에 타또 팔로에 파다와 잠레스네 윤에 윤자오기네 매바를 삼다지네 나는 가주 마주 되네 요 마시와스케 말와
I'd certainly encourage everyone to gather knowledge, become learned in this topic of emptiness, and to engage in meditating on it. Because there's such incredible benefit that will follow from doing so. However, it is imperative that you meditate in the way that are presented here, which is to meditate on both on both emptiness and dependence arising together. This is imperative. Because there is a danger that when one investigates to see whether phenomena exist in the way that they appear to the mind, and investigates well and finds that they are empty of existing by way of their own nature, empty of existing in the way that they appear, one will come to the conclusion they do not exist. And that conclusion may well be correct. But we need to understand they do not exist in the way that they appear. And that's subtly different. Moreover, as one investigates varying objects, remembering that nothing exists in the way that it appears, all objects are empty of existing in the way they appear, none exist independently despite appearing so, Bearing all that in mind, one will investigate a wide number of objects, and in every case, one will find that they are empty. And therefore, one will come to the conclusion, everything is empty, and that is all correct. But if that's as far as one goes, there's a grave danger, because one will reflect that causes are empty, results are empty, happiness is empty, suffering is empty. All of that is correct. But if one is not including dependent arising, one will think there's no such thing as cause and effect. Don't need to worry about karma. I can do anything because suffering doesn't exist. This would be a grave error. So therefore one has to also reflect on dependent arising together with emptiness, reflecting that causes are empty of existing in the way they appear. They do not exist in the way they appear, but they do exist dependent on imputation by mind. And because they exist dependent on imputation by mind, they can function as a cause and produce a result. That result too is empty of existing in the way that it appears. So for example, a result of happiness or suffering is empty of existing in the way that it appears independently. But it still exists dependently, dependent on parts, causes, imputation by mind. Just like the car. The car doesn't exist independently. It's empty of existing independently, so it does not exist in the way that it appears to mind. But it does exist as an imputation by mind onto the accumulation of all its parts. So in this needs to be understood well, how to meditate on emptiness and dependence arising together, so that one can recognize how phenomena do not exist in reality and how they do, and that no phenomenon exists inherently, independently, but they do exist dependent on imputation by mind, and therefore there is cause and effect, happiness and suffering.
Rāshīn dhūpi tōngpa rē sīdhū kāngā yō mā rē skī shīgō mā rwa. Chīsā tā tōngpa sī tāshīn jībē sī na tōngpa nī rē labdhū tōngpa rē sīdhū tōngpa sā yā mē bā tā rāshīn dhūpi mē bā tī tā tsāo yī mē bā nī jīgwa mā rwa. Chīsā tā tēnī kī sām tāngpa yā nō rū shā kō rē. Chīsā tēnī tā tā rāshīn dhūpi kī rāng ngō nī dhūpa tū yō mā rē lab yō tū dōndā lā kāngā yā mā tū bā chī yō mā rē lab yō tū tī dōnla yā shēni tūni yōnggō rē sā chī kūgō rwa. Chīsā tsāo kī nī mē bā rē sā nī kō mā rē. Chīsā tēnī yā tsāo kī rāshīn mā rūpa tsāo kī nī mē bā rē sām tā chē bā nā dī tā tā chā kō mā rē.
So therefore, bear this statement in mind. So these following synonyms, empty of existing independently, empty of existing by way of its own nature or essence or characteristics, all those statements, which have the same meaning, do not mean that something does not exist at all. Something that is empty of existing in the way that it appears to mind, that statement does not equal to, and therefore does not exist at all. It does not exist at all in the way that it appears to mind, but it does exist dependently. This is a crucial distinction. When you realize emptiness, you're realizing that it is empty of existing in the way that it appears to mind. But that doesn't mean it doesn't exist at all. When you realize that something is empty, you realize that it's empty of existing in the way that it appears to mind. And that does not mean it does not exist at all. It does still exist, but dependently.
Dene yang chi tongpa nila zichi du nyambar shabi, zichi du nyambar shabi nyamsha shida, dan shila songzhi yunga ne, shila songzhi dingi zin chado ruwa, dene ke shila songzhi. Dene ke yang tongpa nila nyambar shakse tamchi shila songzhi sayadi njimiji shirab digi jeba che guya yo ma re. Deshi shila songzhi madob nyala de jeba jangdo che sarwa. Da shila songzhi top chane an jele yang chi shirab digi jeba che mo yu tongpa nila zichi du nyambar shashi nyamsha rang je de ne. 안도시네 냠바시 동반이네 냠바시비기 도시 공부로와 예 되네게 donam 냠샤 동유 동반이 냠바시 Denigi yang Gabriel yang Dongbani la nyamba sha shimbe zejido mipa zejido dene yang shede ge jeba jeba yang samna da ya da denigi rimba shin ko zhogo se dene ya ma de inji mi ji da dong da chi la sun top san dene june jeba jemo wa ji gi na Dongbani la zejido nyamba jang sha de ba na yang sherab de ya ge zho tu me re da yang ji Dongbani la zejido du shin de sherab ji ge jeba jang she de ba ne dingi zin de ya ge zho tu me re da这在dingi za ko加了嘛，说小半年那些，我与东半年了，这就两把Gabriel呀，他希腊送的 top 菜园那Gabriel东半这就两把下呢，写的给结巴马结巴这就两把然后就两把下呀，然后这Gabriel呀，这对的鱼的这定义成这个女把的天别团的，然后写的给发都是呢，结巴然后结巴都是呢陪我是说的，你们能意思说的。
Looking again at the verse, which is presenting the need, firstly, having already realized emptiness, to then take one's realization of calm abiding and try and place it on the subtle object of emptiness. And when that's done, don't be oversatisfied with that. Just like when one gains the initial realization of emptiness, don't be satisfied just with that. One needs to go further. Developing one's calm abiding so that it can be placed on the subtle object of emptiness. When that's been done, don't be complacent with that. You need to go further and be able to develop the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness. So in this very subtle object of emptiness, now not only can you hold it single-pointedly, but one can continue with differentiating or discerning awareness and investigate further. When one has done that and achieved the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, focusing on emptiness, don't be complacent with that. One needs to continue further. And by continuing further, what is meant now, when one already has the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness, is that sometimes you will focus when you'll realize emptiness and hold it single-pointedly, the realization of emptiness. Other times, you'll realize emptiness, hold it single-pointedly and quickly continue with analysis. And the reason for needing to do both and doing them repeatedly is so that when one realizes emptiness and holds it single-pointedly, one is strengthening one single-pointed concentration. And other times, when one realizes emptiness, and one continues to analyze deeper, one is developing one's meditative insight, one's discriminating wisdom. So therefore, one needs to develop both minds ever further, even when one has achieved the realization of the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. When both of the wings of the bird need to be developed further.
Coming to the
Coming to the 107th verse, please bless me to perfect samadhi on illusion by realizing how all inner and outer phenomena lack true existence, yet still appear like a mirage, a dream, or the moon's image on a still lake.
气大难给确实的，气确实的气出所拉说不确，气出所拉说不确的，的那能sem拉说不的，的那个气哪些的，按气出所拉说不虐他虐句些的，他这个怎么灵里啊，这些哪些拉说不的，啥他去台面的弄拉说不下上气切，按的哪里看sem见的那个的下上的那个虐句的sem见他们起来这个气些的，的那能写吧，刚才的个那个写吧的，蓝的，的那个伢那个把蒙古话的写上，那能是，但是这其他能个却跟的基因那样，但却能一个让用的主把都要买的是呢，有嘛那些的是些，有嘛的米兰的，按单位错是错能，但是那些是别人嘛说什么叫的话，别呢有嘛看见有嘛对样的，然后怕那的我那来一般能过的。对啦，俺舅妈的告诉我的，的那个 Talang Rochi in the Yomare said. I as a Milamine, Nilam Nikudikale, Nikubit, Medoda, Kambada, Zishela, Bening George, Ni say, the Nigi, Nilam, now some Monera, now Yoba Nangordi in there, the Dala Yomare said, Nilams. Then the Dami Society. Chunyoba Meba Chupe, Kamsang, Tangmushu, Chuna, Delia, Dawi, Padawa Shar, the Minutsonalma, Davis Union Shashi, Shagorwa. Now do some Dawanera, Yobanashi, Nangor, the Dondala, Dawa de Yomar was, Chisa, Denegi, China Chunam, Chida Dinashi, Chinang Chetam, Jumana Shide, Chinam Chetamji, Milamgida, Milam Navigi, Medola, Zishila, Kambala Soba, Deneri. That Denigi Chinang Chetam, many Bene Chutangmanalia, Davigi Shavanaji, many Davanashi, Chuna Shatung, and Davis Union Nashi is. Chisanga to Naya Chetam Jack and the Chinang Chokanina, Rangun when you do a shalam, but Rangun when you do a Nangor de Donala, Rangun the Yomares, Milan Nashi, and the Chikasu Gumana Shire, and David Sozuna, Sonada, Dasuna Shire, as I do Sumudua.
The first line in the Tibetan is for us, part of our second line, all outer and inner phenomena. Outer phenomena refers to everything around us. Maybe we think of the term the container and the contained, or the world and beings within it. So everything that is around us. Inner is a much smaller category, it's our varying consciousnesses. So inner refers to our consciousnesses, and everything that is apart from that is the outer. And this is another way of saying all phenomena. In the old translation we have the word all, but which is there because there's a plural. But then all phenomena, outer and inner, they appear to our mind as if they exist by way of their own nature or essence. But as we've just heard in the presentation in the previous verse, they are empty of existing in that way. So the way we should relate to them, or they're empty of existing this way, so this is the third line, lacks true existence. They are empty of which means they are empty of existing in the way they appear. And the third line continues, yet still appear, like a mirage, a dream, or the moon's image on a still lake. So just to say in the translation, the newer translation, the fourth line is translated as like an illusion, a dream, or the moon's image on a still lake. So the old translation is mistaken as not a mirage, which in Tibetan is a very similar word to illusion, but it should be an illusion. And then both of them refer to a still lake, but it rather should be a clear lake. The meaning of the analogy is the same, but it's not the word for being still. It's a word for being clear or pure. But the lake would still be still, but that's not the word here. It's a clear lake or a pure lake. So the meaning then of the three illustrations is that phenomena, as we see in the line above, lack true existence. All phenomena, inner and outer, lack true existence but still appear like an illusion. So an illusion we know, or a magical illusion, we know magic as something that appears to us through magic. We know that that is a trick. What we've seen and being entertained by, we know is an illusion. It does not exist in the way that it appears. Also, when you wake up in the morning, or maybe from a nap in the day, we immediately can recognize what we've been dreaming of. Those objects of our dream do not exist in the way they appear. Or with a reflection. We see a reflection in a mirror or on the lake, and we see the moon shining back at us. That is not a real moon. It appears in one way, but it does not exist in the way that it appears. The way then to relate to this verse is, whilst phenomena appear to our mind as being independent, as existing truly or by way of their own nature or essence, that is not how they exist. They are empty of existing in this way. Yet they still appear. So we should relate to them, relate to their appearance as being like an illusion, their appearance as being like a dream, their appearance as being like a reflection.
Naya Dembar maybe Sulone, Gumating over Chingulos. Chisa Naya Dembar maybe Sulone, Gumating Sinsor. Chisada Naya Dembar Mebas, that did Jetobla Sungore, Jetobla, Yamsha Sigomar. The Tombanila, the G Galia, Tomban Sherakin, the Tombanila Mino Gomje, Tombanila, Yambashin Gombik, Yamsha Kaso, Rashima, Tombanila Gom. The new Gombik, Jetobla 2, Shan, you carriage ya now in there. Dembar may be Suldonis. Now on Hachi Yomare, some Losi Kuore, Chisa Kuore, Dele Yamshamare, the Chetublu. Dele Gumatabitin Silio, Naya Dembar may be Suloni, Gumitis, Gumatabo topic, Shetamji, Gumatabo topic, Dingis or that is Chetublu Sigore. Chisa Pena that the Pedire, that Tawanagi, Tawa said. Pen Davina, Manichunalma, David Tonga to do study color. Tawanashi Nangorde, and some many Tawa Mare, some mother, Tawa, some unism Gorwa. Carson, Tawa, you by the Digu Sunyan Shabating has a Hagugorwa, Chiminidi, Naya, Tawasum Trim Nangorde, in the house, some Nalia, then is not Tonga together. Taware, some union, Tawade, Tawa Sunyan, and some Mato, Taware, and some Suyomarwa. Dinashin Tombani, Dotsan, Tombani, Nyamba Shane, Nyamshell to down to Chetuki Nagasu, the Nigit, Nigansa Digela, and Chu Kadishan, Dembatuba, Davina, Chuna, Davina, Nashi, Dembatuba now at the Haku, Nang, or did now Nashin Tower in Yomares and Bigita, some of the Liricore. Manazuki made it Tawa Mares and some of Yobanajin Consul Dion. Della, and Naya Dembam Sulone, Gumitin, Della, Gumatabi, Jetop, Gumatabi, in Sensiorda.
The previous verse refers to when one realizes emptiness, when he's in meditative equipoise on emptiness, and it refers to the space-like meditation on emptiness. So this refers to being in meditation. Hence, the commentary was about first realizing emptiness, then realizing with calm abiding, and then with the union of calm abiding and meditative insight. So this was referring to meditating on emptiness. This verse refers to the illusion-like meditation on emptiness in subsequent attainment, whereas the previous verse referred to the space-like meditation on emptiness in meditative equipoise. This verse, the second verse, 107, is referring to when one is not in meditation on emptiness, but has realized emptiness previously in meditative equipoise, the previous verse. So when one realizes emptiness, one realizes phenomena do not exist in the way that they appear, they're empty of existing in the way they appear, but they do still exist as merely labeled by mind. Now, in subsequent attainment, meaning the attainment is the realization of emptiness, and subsequent to that, so when one is not realizing emptiness, one is not in meditative equipoise, then phenomena will appear to our mind continuously. We are objects of thought. We remind ourselves they are like an illusion, like a dream, like a reflection. So, for example, if we see a reflection of a moon on a clear lake, we will know that that is not a moon. We know that we're educated enough to know that that is a reflection of a moon. Likewise, someone who has realized emptiness, they'll be educated enough now to know that whatever appears to their mind, whatever they are thinking about, does not exist in the way that it appears. It appears in a certain way, but it is empty of existing in that way. Just like now, when we see a reflection, for example, of a moon in water, we know that it appears to us as a moon, but we know it is not. So this is how the yogin who has realized emptiness will relate to how anything and everything appears to their mind, all outer and inner phenomena, are empty of existing in the way they appear, empty of existing truly, empty of existing independently.
Dinashe, depending on Zugi, Shawar Shinala, Pasumi, Shadu Kabla, Tangan Zugina, Shawan, Sunya, the Sumi, and Beke, Soso Rashin, Nangor, Dine, now Nashin, Marimba, Sumi, Barrias, and Beke, Semnia, Bay, Shuchi, Namda, Yohaska, Marva, Ben, the next. Semjan Kashi, Shawar Patun, Shimirushina, did call Penisunia Shadow, and Palia, or some Pagin, called Delia, Labigi, Jushia, Chigdua. She's a Digarson, Korong, whenever do some good. Now, I said, Tahara, whenever Zindugore. She's a good Jume Bahamo, whenever Zinjene, and Delia, and Paj, Shanaway, that Tuyajigoro. She's a Didin Hanshalua. She made one year, Marco, one penny. Juma de now at when I listen Zindur. Ding the Tony Maton and Gaza Digi Gala Mother Rangun, but now you do dinner when I say Zindur. That did a much sincere. That on your door, second Gaza Digi, Tony La Don, Tony Yambashane, Jetu Sushan, second Digi. Now you do. Kumada is now at some mother, didn't see your mother, some cold war, or dinner is what bed.
Perhaps we don't all too often see the reflections of moons in lakes, but what one does see is one's face in the mirror all too often. So we know immediately that is a reflection of our face. We know immediately it does not represent our actual face. It is not our actual face, rather. It is not our actual face, and therefore it does not exist in the way that it appears. So we know this. We have this knowledge. But not all beings know this. Perhaps you've seen directly, or maybe you've seen on YouTube. Sometimes animals such as cats, they see their reflection and they get very upset, they get very excited. They feel there is another cat present. And this is because they believe that what has appeared to their mind is how it exists. They believe that it does, this a cat that has appeared to their mind does exist in the way that it appears. So here, we can, from our perspective, we can see an illustration of the ignorance of true grasping, where this sentient being has taken what has appeared to their mind to exist in the way that it appears. We, looking from the side, we can recognize that what has appeared to their mind is the reflection of a cat, in this case themselves. But the cat, their ignorance, has grasped that it truly as the appearance to their mind of this cat as being in accordance with reality, when it is not. And therefore, they have this response, which for us is very entertaining, for the cat is very frightening.
The
verse ends like all these do in this section. First line for us in English: please bless me to perfect the samadhi on illusion. So here we are asking our Lama and the Buddhas and the Yidam to please bless us so that we can keep this realization in mind in meditative, in subsequent attainments between meditation sessions.
no kumata bore sebeki chetu kumata bi ting said that thing is in the nyamsha dona nyamsha namgata bi na ju ting is in sedu dongbang la ji nyamba sha she da de na ya de mar su de kumata bi ting is in la de chetu bi ne gap ki na ya na rang wen de me yo ma re sembe this some de jida lam nyamna de rimba de chi gore jida dangbo de dongbang la ji de nyamba she be dongbang de bi lo ra re da de ni ba de Yumatabi things inside 동반이 또 별로 말해서 그런데 동반이 또 별로 말해 유디 규마따보 또 별로래서 규마따보래서 말도 동반이 또 별로 말해서지 근데 순고다 제도 그랬어.
So first, just to correct myself as translator from the previous segment, here we're asking our Buddha, the Lama, and Yidam to bless us, not merely just to keep this in mind, but to develop this realization to the point of perfection, in other words, to Buddhahood. So now to come to Geshe's commentary on now. So this the previous verse 106, this refers to being in meditative equipoise on emptiness. In other words, realizing emptiness in meditation, developing our mind realizing emptiness to being a mind of secondly, calm abiding realizing emptiness, and then thirdly, the union of calm abiding and meditative insight realizing emptiness. So those three stages: first realizing emptiness, then developing the realizing mind to being a mind of calm abiding, and then developing the realizing mind to also being a mind with meditative insight. So this refers to the space-like meditation on emptiness in meditative equipoise. Now this verse, the second verse we've looked at tonight, 107, refers to subsequent attainment, as opposed to the previous verse, meditative equipoise. This then is this 107th verse is the illusion-like meditation on emptiness in subsequent attainment, where having realized emptiness, having realized the phenomena do not exist in the way they appear, but they are empty of existing the way they appear. Now when going about our business, all these thoughts appear to us, objects appear in a particular way as being truly existent, but we know they do not exist in the way they appear. They are empty of existing in the way they appear. They are empty of existing truly. Just like an illusion does not exist in the way it appears. A dream, or the objects of a dream, do not exist in the way they appear. And the object of a reflection, or the reflected object, does not exist in the way that it appears. So the 107th verse is not referring to the wisdom that is realizing emptiness, because that is the previous verse, meditative equipoise, but rather our wisdom in subsequent attainment. So the illusion-like meditation on emptiness in subsequent attainments. Our wisdom outside of formal meditation, where we're relating to all that appears to our mind as being empty of existing in the way that appears, but just like an illusion is, just like the dream object is, just like the reflected object is.
나디니기 당한 저기 다도시네 제게 랍자로 실행되라 가르선다 도섬다 최간의 신의 신질을 뛰는 주범마 강라이 마도바 라응원의 주바 싸우기는 요말에 선배 삼다시나 당한 줄이야 강낭베네 제 고랑군의 주범 난고데 나와나 신질이 요말에 선배 삼다 다디니기 삼다리 돌아야 주니들이야 당한 줄 강하로 체베이네데 미신기 교주지로 체베이나데 지 미신기야 뛰어가로 체베이네 대소 차상에 그 균한기 현실을 뛰는 주바스마도 강나야 뛰어보면 랑원의 주바사 자오기는 매아 선배가 강한 체베이네 디니 제사 디니에서 랑원의 마주바 인상 균한기 현 뛰어내고 매바 쇠투에 세여가 차리 그래 세여바리마도 세야매바 말에 제사 디니에서 디소 낭잠마도 다신 집에 채나 랑원의 주 매바래서 낭잠을 해서 디디 삼다 디니에서 당하는 주기 디니게 강아들 시비네 다지게 디니게 나 세대 나를 녀서 시비 나디야 다신 집에 채나 랑원의 주바 지어말면서 진주 다신 집에서 나는 나와나시 매반자 될 녀스가 민도와선 베게 디니게 나 주게 두 삼다만 지 강아로 신나 가레이베네 대소네나 주네 균한기에 현래 뛰는 주점 다바점마도 다신 집에서나 랑원의 주 매바래 랑원의 마주바인자 균한기에 현래 되네 고 매바 세 투비하다 탑람 여바지 차고래서 베게 디네 삼다베나 아주게 셈리아 연 아주도 시네 강아디게 또 충주야다 철마르게 개발된다 연구로와
The way I encourage you to relate to these two verses, how to utilize what you've heard here in your own life, is firstly to engage in the meditations on emptiness repeatedly over a sustained period, again and again, trying to see how phenomena appear to the mind, taking the self, taking a car, any phenomena, to get to see how they appear, and then investigating to see if they exist in this way or not. Coming to recognize that no phenomenon exists in the way that it appears, but is empty of existing in this way. And then how does one utilize this in one's life? Because in meditation, you'll experience tremendous peace as one comes to realize that phenomena do not exist in the way they appear. And independence on that, then in subsequent attainment, between meditation sessions, when you encounter problems, suffering and difficulties, because of your skill now for meditation, you'll be able to readily apply what you've realized in meditation to life's problems. So for example, if someone criticizes you, what you have in your mind is an appearance coming from their criticism. Immediately, in dependence on your meditation, you're reminded it does not exist in the way that it appears. This feeling of suffering does not exist in the way that it appears. The words of the other person do not exist in the way they appear. If my feeling of suffering did, it would be independent, and there would be nothing I could do. If the words that were said existed in the way they appeared, that meaning would be inherently existent. There would be no other way to interpret those words or to relate to them, but there is. Immediately one's mind relaxes. Moreover, the way the speaker, the person who criticized me, appeared to my mind, they do not exist in the way they appear. Them saying these things does not define them. They are not who they appear to my mind. And likewise, me who's suffering, I don't exist in this way either. I don't exist in the way I appear to my mind. And now if my mind's calm and at ease, the way I'm appearing to my mind, also I do not exist in this way. But rather, the words, the emotion that arises, the speaker of the words, the hearer of the words, all are empty of existing in the way they appear, but exist merely labeled by mind. Then one does not suffer from the criticism one heard. One's mind stays peaceful, calm, and thereby can skillfully deal with the situation. In this way, life's challenges and problems are not perceived as such. Not being perceived as such, they cannot overwhelm us, because we realize they do not exist in the way they appear. Nor, however we experience things, that too does not exist in the way that it appears. And nor do I. So this is how we should relate to these verses. So thank you very much. Then we'll conclude there for tonight. Thank you so much.